Hello, magical experimenters. Taylor Ellwood here. I'm just getting set up and figuring out some of the lighting. So today I wanted to continue on the topic of wealth magic, and I wanted to talk about the power of discipline. Part of this was prompted by reading. I'm starting to read "Discipline is Destiny" by Ryan Holiday. It's been a good reminder for me. And I'm glad that the book came when it did. It fits hand in hand with some internal work I'm doing right now in my life around self-love and other things. But it's also really about paying attention to how you apply discipline to your life, so that you don't live a life where you're being controlled by your appetites and your desires. And I think this fits hand in hand with wealth magic, because when you're controlled by your appetites and desires, you're not really able to focus in on manifesting wealth. Because you're always living defined by your appetites and desires. We're going to talk about that as I go through here. But in the meantime, if you're a new person to this channel, go ahead and click the like button and the subscribe button, so you get the notification when I go live. And if you're a frequent flyer, please like this video and feel free to comment as we go through. So we talk about discipline and wealth magic. What we're really talking about, it goes hand in hand with need as well. When I talked about the power of need last time, and how need trumps want, right? Need trumps desires, because when you desire something, it's a nice thing to have, but it's not something essential. But when you need something, then you will do anything for it. And this is very much a truth that I've seen bear out time and time again, both in my own life and in the lives of other people, where when someone needs something, they'll do whatever it is they need to do to get it. But when they want something, they may do some things, but they won't work for it as hard, because it's nice to have. It's a comfort. It's not something that's essential. And I think that once people reach a certain level of comfort in their lives, they won't necessarily strive as hard. Now, each person has to decide what their level of comfort is, and also what their purpose and their need is for why they're doing whatever they're doing in their lives. This applies both magically and mundanely. In my case, I can safely say that if I truly want something, and versus needing it, the want, again, is not going to be absolutely essential. The need, though, will be, and the need will dictate and define the way that I approach life. And I mean, I know I share this as an example. Like, I'm right now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I'm doing some dashing in the evenings. I'm getting ready to scale that back, because the need for it I've gotten to the point where I don't need to do it, or I won't need to do it within a month as much as I did before. And so that'll change things. Then I will be able to pivot and focus on some other needs. And I think this is a really important thing. Like, when you look at wealth magic, you need to, you want to understand what your needs are and how they dictate your circumstances. You also want to understand the level of comfort, and how that level of comfort in and of itself also shapes the circumstances with what you do. These are all things that I think are very important. But in Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday, and it just came out, he says something really profound, and this is in regards to avoiding the superfluous. He says a couple things. He says, when we desire more than we need, we make ourselves vulnerable. When we overextend ourselves, when we chase, we are not self-sufficient. There's a lot of truth to that. If you don't need something, you might chase after it, but it's not as essential. He goes on to say, by being a little hard on ourselves, it makes it harder for others to be hard on us. By being strict ourselves, we take away others' powers over us. And he goes on to share an example where, basically in regards to Michelangelo, the artist, who didn't live with austerity, but he didn't take the gifts of his patrons, because what he understood was that real wealth was autonomy. Think about that. Real wealth is autonomy. The less you desire, the more free you are. Real wealth is freedom. People think that real wealth is lots and lots of money. But that's not always the case. I mean, money can definitely buy you things, but does it always bring freedom? Real wealth is autonomy. And I think this is true because, like, right now, as I've been sharing on my own journey, I've been doing some dashing, and I've gotten really good at it. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I can on a good night, I can make like $100 like within a few hours of doing it. So not too bad. And I've used this to supplement my daytime job. But the thing that I've come to really understand is that as I've gotten closer and closer to the need that I wanted to manifest, and I've manifested that need by sticking with it and being disciplined, I'm also achieving a sense of autonomy with that because I'm like, okay, now I can free up time to do other things that I need to do, that I want to do, but I can free that time up. And so I'm starting to do some of those things. I'm getting out and being more social. I'm getting out and choosing other things. But one of the things that I'm also doing is I'm watching very carefully what I spend money on. I'm not eating out all the time. I'm not going and doing any and every little thing that I could do out there. And a lot of times I'm choosing the things that I go and I do very carefully. And the reason why is because I I want to have that freedom of autonomy in my life. I want to be able to do the things that I want to do, but I don't want to be enslaved to my desires. A person who's enslaved to their desires, where basically their desires dictate, who and what they are and what they do, invariably ends up becoming weighed down and overburdened by those desires. One of the one of the greatest things that I can say is that when you are in a situation where you have little to no debt, it opens up a world of freedom for you because you're able to do a lot more when you don't have debt because you realize, okay, the debt does not dictate or define my life. And a lot of times when people are in debt, I find that and I speak from my own experience, but also from overhearing stories from other people. What I invariably find is that they're in debt because they chase their desires and they let their desires dictate, their life instead of just being disciplined and focused and saying, okay, I'm going to sacrifice this thing for a while. I'm going to sacrifice this thing that I like doing for a while in order to focus and get the thing that I need. And once I've sacrificed it for a while, when I'm ready, I can bring it back. Well, a lot of people don't do that. They're just like, no, I want this thing, and they mistake their want for a need. You might want to go out for dinner, but you don't need to go out for dinner. You might want to get that expensive piece of furniture or clothing or whatever, but you don't need it. A lot of times, what we want, we mistake what we want for what we need because we haven't disciplined ourselves. We haven't looked at like what we absolutely need and use that as the standard for defining our approach to wealth and the way we manage wealth. So I think like when you start to do that, it changes what you take on because you're willing to say, okay, I don't need to take this on or that on. Instead, I'm going to be very specific and only take on what makes the most sense to me. Never take on more than what you're willing to choose to take on. Never take on more than what you know you can handle. That's a good principle to live by. It's not a principle a lot of people live by. It's not a principle I lived by for a good part of my life. I've learned to be that way, and I'm still learning that. But that's where the discipline piece comes in. So when you look at your wealth magic, let's tie this back to wealth magic. When you look at your wealth magic and the wealth magic that you're going to do, and whatever particular type of wealth magic it is, whether it's a honey jar or a poppet or a sigil or something else, look at it from the perspective of like, what's the ultimate outcome? What do you really want this to get you? Again, it's not about getting money. It's about what does that money do for you? It's not and what are you taking on as a result of getting that money? I mean, you have to consider that too. But look at it from the perspective of what does this get for me? And then what am I willing to do for it? And is this an absolute essential need? If it's not a need, Can you let it go for a while? Can you focus on your needs first and foremost, and wait until it becomes a quote unquote need, if it ever becomes a need? I find a lot of times that when something isn't a need and you can let it go, that you identify with it less and less, and you start spending money less and less on it because it becomes something superfluous. So, with your approach to wealth magic, really pare it down and look at it from a perspective of, what do I actually need? What's going to help me get to what I need? And remember that if wealth is autonomy, which I think it is, then it's better to focus on what you need and build from there than from building from what you want. Now, some people might say, but Taylor, I want to be able to enjoy my life. And my response to that would be, you can enjoy your life. There's a lot of things you can enjoy about your life when it comes to need and want. There's a lot you can enjoy in the need. It may not seem like it, but there really is. There's a strength in being able to meet your needs and know that when you get those needs met, then you have a foundation in place that supports everything else that you're going to do. And that you can transform the wants into needs, because sometimes they will transform into needs once you get the basic needs met. That's my thought for you today, and it's apply discipline to magic, and look at how discipline can shape not just your wealth magic, but magic in general. Look at how it can shape your magic based off of what you need, and how and your ability to stay focused on what you need instead of allowing yourself to be dictated by your desires. Desires are finite, and the achievement of them does not always bring the satisfaction that one would think. The genuine achievement of satisfaction, I think, is found more in recognizing your purpose and your passion and pursuing it in a way that honors those needs and allows you to follow through in a way that where you're not being distracted by all the things around you that you could be doing that, yeah, might be nice to have, but they aren't essential. What is essential? Stay focused on that, and it changes your approach to magic in general. So I think the need and desire, how to tell the difference, really comes down to this: can you live without something, or can't you? You can't live without water, for example. You need water. You can live without food for a while, but you need it ultimately. You you could try to live without a shelter, but that's not a very fun way to live. And I mean, ideally, you want to have some type of shelter. So you need that. I think in the end, most people do. Some people don't, and hey, whatever. But also the quality of your life. Like, what define the quality of your life? What does the quality of your life look like, and what are the things that you need to have in order to ensure that quality of life, versus what you want to have but isn't absolutely essential. You know, do I need that Netflix subscription? Not really. I could watch my collection of DVDs and shows and things like that I already have. Do I even need those? Not really. I mean, they're nice to have, and they're a form of entertainment, but I could spend the time writing. I could spend the time creating art. I could spend the time doing other things. Nothing is so essential that you can't let it go. And I think when you learn to let things go, that's when you discover what you absolutely need versus what you desire. Because a desire really is based more on trying to satisfy something in the moment, whereas a need is really based on, this is something that is key to the purpose of my life. It's key to my survival, but it's also key to what I do. Like, I need to write. Okay, I need to write. That is something I need to do, and I need to create art. Those things are part of how I manifest wealth in my life. They may not have a direct causative relationship to money, but they although the writing certainly seems to. Um, but the need to write is essential to me, and it's something I need to do, and it contributes to my overall quality of life, my sense of and the sense of joy and purpose that I have. So it's a need. But, buying the video game, that's just coming out. Well, that's not a need, it's a want. And hey, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with having wants. But you have to figure out like the difference between that. And I would say even like if you look at a need, but look at a need not just in terms of sheer survival or even passion and joy. Look at a need in terms of, okay, what does bring me a sense of enjoyment in life? Like I can say that I like playing board games. That brings me a sense of enjoyment in my life. Spending time with other people playing board games is a need that I have. When I play board games, I'm getting to interact with people socially. It makes me feel better to connect with people in that way. Plus, I'm having fun. That's a need that I have. It is a choice, but it's also a need. I don't necessarily need to buy all the board games. I could get together with somebody else who has a board game and play their board games. So, it's not, that's the difference there. I need this activity because it's something that's essential to my sense of well-being. I want the board game. That's not essential to my well-being. It's something that would be nice to have. So hopefully that illustrates that. It's just an example, I think, of really examining like what is absolutely essential to you and then giving away anything that isn't. All right, thanks for watching, and catch you sometime next week.